Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Packback webinar, where we're going to talk about using artificial intelligence to improve critical thinking and writing. One of our colleagues, Dr. Kathleen West, who teaches psychology courses over at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, her and Ryan are going to be walking through kind of a quick demonstration of the Packback platform, as well as going through some of the research that Dr. West has done around participation, improved critical thinking and writing skills in her students. And then after that, we'll have an open Q&A where, any questions that you ask throughout the demo, we'll be able to jump right in there. So without further ado, wanted to introduce you all to Dr. Kathleen West.
Awesome. Well, my name is Dr. West. I graduated, I'm going to show a little shout out here, in 2003 with a BA in psychology from Clemson University. So yay, go Tigers. We had a good night on Monday. I also went on to earn a PhD in neurosciences from the Medical University of South Carolina, and I followed up that with a postdoctoral fellowship in the biochemistry department. Since then, I've been really gone back to my first love, which has been teaching. I've done a lot of different types of teaching. I've taught a traditional face-to-face. I've taught a hybrid situation, which is like a 1 day a week with some online component. And I've also taught 100% online. And I've kind of taught all over the board as far as things within the psychology department. I've taught physiological psychology, intro, research methods, senior seminars, social psych, careers in psych. I'm currently teaching an acting for psychologists course. Also, just because I could, I've taught biology 1 and 2, statistics, and algebra.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Kat. Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan. Dan and I switched seats. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining. Really excited to run through this quick demonstration of Packback for you guys and have Kat join here. But first and foremost, our entire mission and purpose as a company is that we exist to awaken and fuel the lifelong curiosity in every student. The student-driven curiosity, something that our co-founders here are very, very passionate about, and we try to encourage the student-driven curiosity with our intelligent discussion platform that measures and improves soft skills like curiosity and critical thinking in students. There are 3 core objectives to Packback. One is establishing a foundation for asking great questions. 2 is to provide an inspiring and constructive feedback loop at scale. And 3 is to fuel purpose and curiosity for the subject matter itself. Number 1 here, basically coaching great question asking for the students. Every student, the first time they log into Packback, they're prompted to go through a quick 5-minute tutorial. This tutorial is going to take them through what types of questions they're expected to be asking on Packback, what types of questions to avoid asking on Packback, just again, setting that expectation with them from the jump so everyone's on the same page and we're ready to go come start of the semester. Just hop into, so this is actually Dr. West's physiological psychology course from this past term. You'll notice in this section, she had 32 students. Now, the first thing I'll point out as well is this familiar social media-like look and feel that it's going to have for the students. We want to give them something as intuitive as possible, so it's very easy to pick up on, and you as the professor aren't getting your inbox flooded with questions on how to use a clunky platform. The way most professors set up Packback is they'll typically dedicate around 10% of the overall grade to Packback, like as a participation score usually. And then the professor will typically have the students respond or ask 1 question every single week, and then respond to 2 of their peers' questions every single week. Now, that's our baseline recommendation and what we have seen to be effective to get the ball rolling. I'll let Dr. West talk a little bit more about that in a second, but wanted to show everyone briefly what it looks like when a student posts a new question. So when a student posts a question, they're prompted to go to this page here. The first thing you'll notice are the question guidelines on the right. These are just best practices to keep top of mind as students are typing. Now they're going to ask their question at a higher level in the small box up at the top. So if I were to type, what is psychology? From there, the system is going to prompt the student to add a description to provide context, to actually explain why they're asking what they're asking. In this box, they can include videos, images, links, whatever it might be to add color to their post. And then from there, they'll be prompted to cite their source. Whether it's just pasting a link to an online article, typing in the title of the textbook, regardless, always want to keep the students in this habit. So the benefit here is that every time a student posts on Packback throughout the term, they're going through this three-step process. So as the term progresses, you'll slowly start to see their posts become more in-depth and more complex. And then again, most professors will assign 10% of the grade and have the students ask a question a week and respond to 2 of their peers per week. That's been used in many different ways. At this time, I would love to kind of open it up to Dr. West to explain how she has used Packback in some of her courses, what she has seen successful, as well as introduce some quick research she has done on Packback, which is exciting.
Thank you, guys. So I had been noticing for several semesters in a row that my students were doing better, particularly on writing assignments. And because I can't help myself, I decided I actually need to see the numbers for this. So this past semester, I conducted a formal study. I had 3 different sections of the same class. This is that physiological psychology class that they were discussing. And what I did with the 3 different sections is this. As you can see in the chart here, there's a dark green bar that kind of goes up and down for weekly participation. That was section 1. And that was the section that participated in Packback. They used the Packback questions platform for their weekly participation of asking a question and answering 2 questions. The second group that I want to point out here is this dotted line at the bottom, this dotted green line. This was the section that, again, had everything else the same as far as the pre-recorded lectures and tests and quizzes, but instead of using Packback, that group used the Learning Management Systems discussion board. And you can see there already there's a dramatic difference in participation. And then the third group that I had is the solid light green bar here. And this group, again, same pre-recorded lectures and everything, but instead of writing each week, they were just asked to read a sample question with an ideal answer and just click a button that says, yes, I've read this and I either knew the answer already or I'm going to go and study the answer. What they didn't know behind the scenes that those questions and answers were taken from previous semesters from some of my students in a Packback course. So I was using things that they would have been exposed to in a Packback section. The biggest take-home message here is Packback matters, and it matters because it keeps them involved and it keeps them participating. So section 2 here that had the worst participation, this was the LMS group that used the discussion board. They were given the exact same instructions that a student would be given at least the first time they log on to Packback, although they didn't know it was Packback's instructions. That's what they were given. But you can see without those reminders, without those weekly things, or without, as they were just showing you on the previous screen, every time the student posts, it gives them certain criteria to follow. The participation just is abysmal. And I spent most of my time when I was checking this class going, sorry, this doesn't meet criteria. This isn't long enough. This is a closed-ended question. This doesn't meet criteria because of this, because of this, because of this. And so the reason that participation is so bad is not because they didn't do it, it's just because they didn't meet criteria. They didn't even meet this minimum standard that we kind of set for what to do. They would say things like, great post, I agree, which isn't contributing at all anything to the discussion and anything to the learning. That's also what I'm showing you here in this second graph. So again, the colors should be the same. The dark green is the group that used Packback. The light green is the group that was just clicking a button, so I would hope they would have good participation scores. And then the slotted green in the middle here is the group that used the Learning Management System in Canvas. Now what I'm showing you with this final bar is, if I took the students that had attempted to participate in the Learning Management System, but for whatever reason wrote things like, yes, I agree, and didn't actually do the bare minimum requirement, this is what it would have or potentially could have looked like for their participation had they been using Packback, which would have prompted them instead of the LMS system. So this is just exactly what I thought I was seeing, which is because of those constant reminders, because of the constant teaching that Packback is automatically doing, my students are not only going to get more of a learning benefit, you'll see that later on, but they're more likely to participate the way I want them to be participating.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Dr. West. But yeah, really diving into this second core objective here, providing an inspiring and constructive feedback loop, but at scale. Now, there's a series of algorithms built into the platform that is actively monitoring every single student post. When a student posts a question, the AI is immediately looking for plagiarism, profanity, closed-ended questions, yes or no questions, statements that aren't questions at all, those questions that I'm sure we have all gotten, when's the next exam? Or hey, when's the homework assignment due? Anytime a student posts a question like that, our AI is going to flag that post. Now, when the AI flags a post, it then gets sent to this moderation queue. This moderation queue then gets double checked and reviewed by our in-person moderation team just to get some human eyes on it and double check the accuracy of the AI to make sure that the post has been appropriately flagged. If from here a post has been deemed appropriately flagged, it's actually going to get removed from the community in Packback. It will not count towards that student's weekly postings just yet. And the student is going to receive a live automated coaching email that this has taken place, prompting them to either edit their current post to make it more robust or republish a new post for their participation points this week. Now, I know this kind of seems like a mouthful. I like to think of this as just a quality standard already built into the platform that's running behind the scenes at all times, basically telling your students, hey, if you want your credit for posting on Packback this week, you're going to have to think a little bit deeper about what you're writing here and post in a little bit more detail. Now, while the AI is running behind the scenes at all times, hands off, which is great, the professor can also provide custom feedback. Now, you can either publicly praise a student's post or privately coach. If you praise, the whole class can see that the post has been praised, and if you coach, that is private just between the professor and the student. This is just a screenshot of an example from Dr. West's course. You'll notice that she praised this student's post. She thought it was a great question, so I'll kind of pass it along to Dr. West to talk about how she uses the praising and coaching features and why she sees it beneficial for her courses.
Absolutely. So praising and coaching is my absolute favorite feature of Packback. So as was just mentioned, all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes just ensures that my students are kind of meeting a minimum criteria. Everything beyond that is what I consider me teaching them, is me actually giving them instruction for how to improve, how to learn, how to do better, rather than me more policing the course saying this didn't meet, this didn't meet, this didn't meet criteria. So some of the things that I really love when my students post, I love open-ended questions. In this particular case, I loved this post because the student connected our course or was hoping to connect our course with what I call like the real world. Why do you need this? Why should we be learning this? And even though I would have already addressed that with them, they don't always believe me. So if they tell each other, it's just even more reinforcement that this is something that they want to learn and that they're going to enjoy doing. I also love the coaching feature. So coaching is just one-on-one. So the student that I coach is only going to see it. No one else would see it. And what I'm able to do is, instead of just deleting the post in general, which is really my only other option in a learning management system form, is I'm able to say, okay, this is a great question, but let's fix whatever it is that's not quite so great about it. And most of the time it's that it's a great question, it's just not quite related to the course material. So a lot of times what I'll tell the students is, keep this question, but see if we can add one or two more lines to reconnect it with something in the book or something from the notes. Because again, all of psychology is related, as are many other disciplines. So again, I don't want to discourage them from asking stuff that's not quite related, but I do want them to get to make those connections because that's really where that critical thinking comes in.
Diving into this third core objective here, fueling purpose and curiosity for the subject matter itself. There's engagement tools and features within the platform to make it a more interactive experience. The first thing I'll explain is the Packback Curiosity Score. Every time a student posts on Packback, our AI awards the student what we call curiosity points. Now, these points aren't typically tied directly to the grade. I like to view it mainly as a fun way to gamify the platform a bit for the students to motivate them to participate. This is the way the algorithm breaks down to award these points. So 20% comes from credibility if they're citing sources. 20% comes from presentation if they're including images, videos, links, whatever it might be to add context. But 60% is pure effort. This goes straight off of word count. Is a student adding context and explaining themselves and at least going a little bit more in depth to add, explain why they're asking what they're asking. couple other quick features to breeze through for you guys here. The first one is pinning. Normally under a question, so I'm not logged in here for privacy reasons. I don't want to show student names here, but normally there's an options drop down under every single post. Now to pin a post, you would go to options and click pin this. A pinned post, you'll notice here has the pin icon at the top of the feed. It automatically sends it to the top, and no matter how many posts come in after it, the pinned post is going to stick up there at the top. I see this feature used in a couple different ways. One, if you want to highlight a great student question, you could pin it to the top of the feed almost as like an example setter, and the whole class will see. You'll notice Dr. West pinned this post and ended up getting 12 responses because it got more attention from the students. Other way that I see this used is you as the professor can actually post your own question or prompt and pin it up to the top of the feed, and either have your students go in and respond to your prompt accordingly, or just have your example setter up there pinned to the top. Now you can only have one post pinned at a time, so this is going to stay up here until you either unpin this one or pin a new one. Next functionality is called featuring. This post at the top is also featured, and you could tell because of that gold star right there. Same options drop down that would normally appear, you would go to options and click feature this. When you feature a post, it is actually going to immediately send that featured post to this entire separate tab up here at the top. This separate tab I like to think of as like a highlight reel or a hall of fame of all of the top posts throughout the term. Now, this is great because it gives the students a place to go to view exemplar posts, model behavior. But this is all archived as well. I do work with some professors who will pull exam questions for future posts. Dr. West, would you mind touching briefly on how you've used the featuring function?
Absolutely. So I really don't have a ton to add that you didn't already say, but some of my favorite reasons to feature something would be if it's really good and I want everybody to see it. If I want to give students kind of their own set of kudos because they would get a message saying, hey, Dr. West really liked this post and featured it. It also is a really nice way. They get a weekly summary email of some of the best posts just automatically generated from Packback. If there's a week where I'm busy and I don't have time to feature anything, it selects based on some of the highest curiosity scores. But if I have had a good week and I've had a chance to give them some feedback, essentially the email they're getting is a custom email from me, even though I didn't send it, because it's everything that I featured, which is actually a lot of fun. And it's exactly what I would have wanted to do as a teacher, but I didn't actually have to do any of it. So it's very hands-off, but very effective.
Great. Yeah, I think you covered that very well. Yeah, just echoing what Dr. West said about the weekly email. On Friday morning every single week, the whole class will receive an email called the Curious Reader Digest that looks a bit like this. This highlights the featured posts from that week, showing the students the posts that Dr. West chose to feature, maybe motivating the students whose posts might not have gotten featured that week, but also, like she mentioned, providing another weekly bump reminder email to the students to actually do their posts. So it's always nice to have that, have more touch points with the students, highlighting the top content throughout the term. Yeah, as far as those tools go, these are all positive reinforcement tools that help the students become more in-depth and explain themselves in more complexity to get to what they're trying to ask and discuss amongst themselves. In this entire process that seems like it might just be a participation grade, their writing is improving. So I'll let Dr. West share a little bit more about the research she found around the students' writing improving using Packback.
So whether they like it or not is irrelevant, and I only make that joke because what I'm about to tell you is that the group that used Packback had the best writing scores consistently throughout the semester compared to any of my other classes. Although my teacher ratings for the semester were the lowest. I don't know what that means exactly. But nonetheless, what I'm really excited about, and I had been seeing this, but I wanted to actually demonstrate it, is that the students that were writing, as we would expect, because that's been known in the literature, always are going to do better if you ask them to write later on. So the more you have them writing, the more often you have them writing, the better they're going to improve. But what got me even more excited is that the groups that specifically use Packback for their writing did even better. So as you can see here, this first set of bars is the group that used Packback. The second set of bars is the group that used the LMS. And the third group of bars was the ones that just clicked and acknowledged that they'd read a question. So again, in general, like I was telling you, both groups that did writing did better than the group that just read a question. But specifically, the Packback group did way better, both on the midterm, that's what these light bars are, and on the final. They had a specific test that was just writing, which is probably why they didn't like it a whole lot. But they really did better, and they were able to give me really great answers. I was very excited about how well they were doing. And again, this looks a little skewed here because it's also added in with a multiple choice exam. So these weren't like final grades on the exam, but just so you can see the differences among themselves. Those that used Packback did better, even though this wasn't quite significant. I lost a little bit of power because I had a number of students actually in this class and in this class that decided they just didn't want to take the final or that dropped the class halfway through. If you were at the NITOP presentation, you heard them saying that the drop rate as well as the D and F rate for grades in the course is really high in physiological psychology, and I've seen that as well. Another thing that excited me is that I only lost 2 people this whole semester in the Packback group. They hung with me, they didn't drop. I'd like to say that's directly related to Packback, although I'm not entirely confident and ready to say that yet, but there's something there. And I'm very excited that not only are they hanging with me throughout the semester and participating, but that their writing skills have improved to the point where they're better than any of the other strategies that I'm using.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that research and really cool findings there. On the subject of writing improving, a new feature that Packback recently introduced, and I can't exactly show it here since I'm not logged in, but students can now respond to each other's responses, adding either a counterpoint or a supporting point. So when a student wants to add a supporting point, it takes them to a screen that shows them how to add a supporting point, but then it has them add a thesis as to why they agree with what the student is saying, and it then prompts them to explain themselves and defend their response. So students are saying, yes, I agree with what you're saying, but not I agree or I disagree. It's I agree and here's why, and here's my stance on it. So critical debates gives them a more safe way to have an academically structured discussion and build off of each other's thoughts and ideas. Just wanted
Can
to
I
relay
jump in
that.
with one point there?
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things that I love about those new features as well is that it's just one more incidence where the artificial intelligence is doing the teaching for me, because it's everything I would have wanted my students to learn. If you're going to have a supporting point, you should include this and this and this. If you're going to have a counterpoint, you should include this and this and this. But I didn't actually have to do any of that teaching. So what gets me excited is that when I do have time to interact with the class, I'm not doing any of the baseline teaching. I get to do those next steps. How do you get this to the next level? How does this post become even better? Why is this post so good so that others can follow the same model? So again, all that stuff that's happening behind the scenes is just going to make your teaching that much stronger.
Yeah, that's great. I totally agree. And it's the expectation setter so that every time a student clicks add supporting point, it gives them those guidelines so that they're not, every single time they add a supporting point, they're not asking you repetitively, so how should I do this? So how should I do this? How do I do this? It prompts them every single time with that set of instructions and guidelines.
Or they're not saying, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah. Into the last thing I'll explain is the participation reports. So, Dr. West, you can obviously shed some more light on this because I'm not the one entering this into Canvas every week. But basically, the way that this would work, most professors set up a weekly deadline. I typically see Sundays at 11:59 p.m. On that day, we will send you a CSV file with your participation report for that week. That file is going to include each student's semester-long total participation. But as you scroll to the right, each weekly interval is completely automated as far as participation tracking goes. Dr. West, if you just want to talk really quickly about how the grading, the ease of grading, and how you upload that into your LMS every week.
Sure. So I've been singing Packback's praises up to this point, and I don't want to stop doing that. But this is probably the clunkiest feature of Packback, although they've come a long way and I love it. But I say that only to say it's not automatic. So unfortunately, it doesn't just straight feed into my gradebook. I still do have to enter it. And there's two ways that you can do that. There is a way that you download that CSV file that they've sent you, and then you just upload it if your learning management system allows for that. And it goes fairly smoothly and puts the grades in. If it doesn't work that way for your LMS, or if you've done something strange one week, like if you've changed your requirements and said this week I want there, you only have to post one response or something like that, you can actually bring up the responses, bring up the gradebook, and then just kind of go through and put the numbers in. Usually a 5 points a week for my students. So it's either going to be a 5 or a 0. I grade it as an all or nothing. Either they participated or they didn't. And so I can just go 5, enter, 5, enter, 5, enter, 0, enter, 5, enter. And for a section of even something huge like 200 to 250, even if you have to manually enter them, it doesn't take more than about 20 minutes. It's also something too, again, you could download this file and you could send it to a TA or something like that. So if you have the luxury of that, they could even help you enter those grades. So unfortunately, it's not automatic, but it is still fairly simple to do. It is also really good that you're giving the students that automatic, not automatic, excuse me, but the weekly grades, because combined with all of the other feedback that they're getting, it just keeps them motivated to stay on track.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That about wraps up everything I wanted to show, just kind of bringing everything back full circle to our mission and purpose. We exist to awaken and fuel the lifelong curiosity in every student. So yeah, I will kind of at this point open it up for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen here. Looks like the first question, how long can a class last? Can students participate for an entire year with the same cohort? Yeah, great question. You set the start and end date for your community. So whether you want that to be an entire year running, ongoing, you can do that. Of course, typically we mainly see the professors do semester-long Packback communities. But yeah, definitely able to do that and have it run the entire year if you chose to. Would be curious to hear more from you, Rachel, about what type of program or thought process or benefits it would have to have a class go all year, though. Perfect. Asked by Austin, how much time would you say you spend giving feedback to your students on Packback? That's definitely Dr. West for you.
Sure. So the easiest answer is it depends, but that doesn't help you at all. But what I mean by that is some weeks I have a full hour or two, just because there's not a lot happening on Monday mornings. And that's when I really like, because I've just finished Sunday night. So I like to go ahead and try to do this Monday morning before my week gets too busy. Again, actually putting in the scores takes me anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, depending on how big my class is. And then whatever time I have left, I'm going to give the praising or the coaching, or I'm going to respond to something in the feed if it's really good and I want to have my own post. Other weeks, for example, registration week is a very busy week here on campus. I sometimes don't even post at all. And they don't seem to notice the difference. Again, that's one of the beautiful parts about the AI working in the background is they're still going to get the email. They're still going to see that there were some posts and everything that they were told to go and look at. I wouldn't say I would go a whole semester without giving them any sort of praising and coaching, but definitely one of those things that you don't have to stress about, oh, I didn't get to read every single one this week. That's okay. They don't seem to notice the difference. What's really the most important is picking out the ones that are the best and explain to the class using those features why they are the best. That's what tends to get the students copying that style and then hopefully learning how to write that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. West, for sharing that. So move on to the next question here. Dr. West, have you seen any difference in the quality of posts from your online classes compared to your in-person classes?
Nothing that's going to prompt me to run out and do a quick study yet. So far, what I have noticed is that there are differences between the two classes, but not necessarily in their abilities. It's more about differences in what I can do with this technology. Both my exam scores seem to be about the same. The writing quality tends to follow that same pattern where it starts out at a certain level and tends to increase throughout the semester. But what I've noticed I can do differently online is to help them reconnect and feel like they're in a community, even though they're not actually going to get to meet each other. So that's one of the big things that you're missing in an online community. I can also highlight things either through Packback itself, or if there's a really, really great question, sometimes I've even copied it from Packback and sent it out as an announcement in the learning management system saying, hey, just so you know, this was a question in Packback. Everybody might want to consider answering this. It sounds like a great exam question, hint, hint. So I can give them some feedback that way. So I said, it really helps to keep people connected. It helps us to feel more like a group. It's a way of giving me some feedback because I don't get the immediate feedback like I would in class. So I can look for trends. What are some of the things that they tend to ask about a lot? And if there's a way I can update my course, is there a way I can put more of that content into the course? So online has its advantages. Same thing with in-person. In-person is really fun because I actually pull up Packback at the very start of my class every day, and I say, hey, where's student A? And they'll raise their hand, and I go, kudos. This was an amazing post. Let's talk about why it was so good. And so I get to one more time reinforce the things that I said were good. I've probably already featured their post, but I get to do it out loud, and they tend to like that. You can also show the learner leaderboard in class and ignite a little bit of competition saying, hey, look, we've had a change in our top 3 this week. I wonder if we'll change again next week. Even though I'm not grading them at all on the learner leaderboard. They like the competition, and so it's good to use that. So have I seen a difference in the quality of posts? No. In the grades? No. But I do have some different things that I do depending on whether I'm online or in person.
Great. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. That, I think, wraps up all of the Q&A. Thank you all so much for joining. If anybody is interested, definitely happy to have a free consultation as to how Packback would fit directly into your course and share if you would share your syllabus with me, I'd be happy to do so. That wraps us up for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Yeah, everyone have a great weekend.